Hey, good morning, everyone. Dennis Caye here with Belize Islands Real Estate. Just like to give a shout out to Jesse. Jesse, thank you so much for today's Starbucks. Really appreciate this. And thanks to all of you who have been signing up for Zoom calls. I'm getting you all in. I know some of you now are having to wait a few days in order to get me on a Zoom call because of the incoming volume of traffic. But again, thanks so much for the coffee. I'll be getting with you just as soon as possible. Now, the reason for this video today is I have a client who is purchasing two properties from me. They are vacant lot properties north of Secret Beach, and they came back with 13 questions, right? And it would probably take me an hour maybe to type all the answers out to these questions. So I thought, you know what? Let me just give her a shout out. Congratulations on picking up these two properties. I'm going to answer each and every one of your questions, and then this will provide you with a solid way to have the information rather than, again, me typing all this out. So question number one, in a situation where someone defaults on payments because she's buying these properties with seller financing in place, is there any deferment options or any other option that would give the buyer a window of opportunity till they start making payments again? That's a very good question. So on the standard Belize contract, if a person misses a payment, they're automatically giving 45 days to get caught up in the payment. The seller can choose then at the end of the 45 days to send them a letter of notification calling the payments due and giving them 45 days to get caught up before he terminates the agreement. Now, I've had this happen only 3 times on my personal sales in the last 15 years. So I've done dozens and dozens of mortgages myself for people who have bought properties from me. And there's only been 3 times where the buyers have had to default. And every time it was mutually agreed upon. It wasn't a hostile situation. There was no anger, animosity involved. Life had just changed for them because of either a job change or a job loss or a family situation change. And so they felt it better at that time just to walk away from the deal. They took a loss, right, because their down payment was lost and any monthly payments they happened to make were lost. But we kept on good terms because you know what? They'll probably be back. And they'll probably get their situation handled, whatever that might be. And in 5 or 10 years from now, I want to be able to help them again find them the perfect property. And I'm going to deal very fairly with them, of course, because we had such a good experience on these first deals, even though they ended up defaulting. So to answer your question, yes, if you cannot make a payment or 2 or 3, just be very open and honest with your with your seller. You know, like right now, out of all the mortgages I hold, there's been I think 2 sellers or 2 buyers rather that have come back and say, look, due to COVID-19, will you delay payments or take half payments for a while? And I've made deals with them, no problem at all, because we don't want to take the property back, right? We want the new buyers to be able to enjoy it. So if there's a period of time that we need to work with them on that, that's usually not an issue. But the good news is, if for some reason there is an actual default and the buyer needs to walk away, the good thing is there's no reporting to the IRS. There's no reporting to any government agency. It's not going to hurt your credit rating at all. In fact, your mortgage in Belize doesn't show up on any reporting in North America. So that's good. So for example, if you're looking to refinance your house or get another credit card or do something like that, this mortgage that you have in Belize isn't going to affect your credit rating at all if you have it and you make payments or if you happen to default. So next question she asked, how much has some of the lots in this area been selling for, and where can I find those records? Is there a government website with this information? Okay, so here's the deal on that. There is no MLS in Belize. Now, what you will find, there is a couple of websites that have the term MLS in the title, but these are not true MLSs, all right? There's somebody who's just able to register a domain name with the term MLS, and they might take listings that they find all over and throw them on there, but it's not a true MLS. And there's the same thing with another, and actually it's a really good group of companies on Ambergris Caye. Some of the top brokerage firms, I think there's 3 or 4 of them that work very well together. And they decided to create a website, put all their listings on there. And so when a person goes to that website, they can see a lot of listings. Now, what isn't recorded in Belize at all are the sales. So for example, you can't go somewhere and say, you know what, show me all the lots in this area that have sold in the past year, 5 or 10 years. That does not exist. There is no MLS. There is no recording of information. So what you would do in this situation, I can provide that information for you, and this can be verified with the closing company that I use, Belize Caye Investments. They handle 99% of all my closings. So for example, I will be able to tell you, yes, in your area, here's the things that have sold for, here's what things have sold for in the past 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. So you get an idea, basically, right? Now, what I will say, because I had another client yesterday, he's a real estate broker in the States, asked the question, if you don't have an MLS, then how do you know, for example, how many days on the market a house has been there for? Or how do you know if I'm being ripped off, right? Or if I'm getting a good deal? Here's the thing, you don't. Because there is no information that is kept track of. Now, there's even another reason, though, why, even if there was an MLS or some sort of recording, that it's not very valuable to you in Belize. For example, in the States, right? If I go into a certain neighborhood, let's say I have a job transfer and I'm going to be moving to, let's say, Port St. Lucie, Florida. Well, I know that there's subdivisions full of thousands of houses that are cookie cutter. They're either 2, 3 bedroom, 1,500 square feet. They have this size yard. So I can go and see, okay, in this general neighborhood, here's what houses are selling for, and I know approximately how I can bargain to get a house that I'm looking to buy. All right, and that's true of apartments, condos, anywhere in the States, because you have volume, right? You have hundreds and thousands of transactions that are processed in similar types of real estate. In Belize, the real estate is so incredibly diverse, right? There is no cookie cutter subdivision, right? There is no place you can go say, okay, these last 20 houses sold for this much. I'm going to pay this much for the 21st house, all right? Because in Belize, it's just the development, first of all, is haphazard, right? It's the Wild West, for the most part. For example, at Secret Beach, we just had a very nice lot sell for $250,000 right at Secret Beach. Beautiful sandy beach overlooking the bay there. Well, just about 3/4 of a mile north, we had a beachfront lot, similar size, sell for $175,000. So why the difference? Well, location. Road access, right? What did the person want to do with lot that they paid $250 for, that they found value in it at that price? By the same token, why did the person spend $175 on a lot 3/4 of a mile north when you can go a little bit farther north of there and get a beachfront lot for, say, $115,000, right? It's very difficult to come up with some sort of rhyme or reason why properties are selling for what they are unless you know the area. For example, these 2 properties that I'm selling to this woman, I know that she is getting an excellent deal. Why? Because I see what's selling all around her and I know what's coming up in the future. All right, so there is no government website with the information you're looking for, but I can provide this information. And just let me tell you one more thing about MLSs and property appreciation values and things like that. Just let me get a sip of coffee. I did have this buyer, or not this buyer, hopefully they are buyers. I had this broker yesterday ask me the question about days on market and things like that. And the response I gave him is like, look, I've taken listings before when literally in 30 minutes I had them sold. A seller came to me and said, Dennis, sell my property. I had a list of people that I thought it would appeal to, shot it over. 30 minutes later, it was gone. I've had properties where the people say, Dennis, sell my property. I put up on websites, I do videos, I talk about them, I make fancy brochures, and it takes them 2 years to sell. Now you might say, well, then was one price better than the other? No, absolutely not. You got to remember the absorption rate in Belize is extremely low. First of all, we have to have people interested in Belize, and then interested in a certain area, and then be able to afford a certain price point of property, and then be able to move on it. So you can have an incredible property that's an excellent deal, and it still might take a year or 2 to sell, all right? Or those properties could sell within 30 minutes, right? So again, no rhyme or reason on that. Let's go to the next question. Question number 3, will I be able to subdivide the lots that I will purchase? Okay, I would say 95% of the time the answer is no, because the lots on Ambergris Caye especially, it might be a little bit different on the mainland when you get larger parcels, but especially on Ambergris Caye, most everything that is being sold today is an individually sized lot. It's not acreage. The only caveat to that is one of these 2-acre parcels that I talked about one of my other videos was once way north of Secret Beach. Those could be subdivided. But the answer is no for you, and it's no for 95% of the people. So just count on building a single family home, a duplex, maybe a fourplex if it's a little bit larger lot. Question number 4, do I have to pay off the mortgage before I'm able to put it back in the market? No, absolutely not. So for example, right now you're buying these lots at X dollars, right? And if development takes place like I think it will here in the next 12 to 24 to 36 months, you may not have the lots paid off yet. You can go ahead, put it back in the market for a higher price, and then when you sell them, all right, you pay off the seller in full, and then you sell it to the new buyers. So you do not have to have a property paid off before you can sell it. Question number 5, can I use my credit card for my down payment? Yes, absolutely. The closing company charges, I think there's a small conversion fee because you're going, I think, sometimes from US to Belize dollars. So your credit card might charge a small fee, and then there might be a small fee charged by Belize Caye Investments. You'd have to check with them. But no, I have some of my clients put down their down payment with a credit card, and that way they get miles on it, right? And I also have a lot of clients that are paying their mortgages every month, their lot payments with a credit card, again, so they get the mileage, other perks, benefits, things like that. Question number 6, can you tell me more about the land? This is a buyer that's never been to Belize. So she says, can you tell me more about the land? Where is it located? Walking distance from the beach, etc. Is it spacious enough to build a duplex? So yes, the reason I recommended these lots for you is because you're young and you have a little bit of a long-term goal ahead of you. So you can afford to buy properties that right now are definitely in the path of progress, meaning this area has no roads yet, no electricity, no infrastructure, but they are close enough to the beach that they're going to be extremely valuable. So for example, these 2 lots that you're buying, one is 550 feet from the beach, one is 730 feet from the beach, okay? Excellent areas, and when their roads do end up in this area, and the road's not too far away, by the way. I think we're going to see road access to some of these areas here fairly soon. Then you're going to be able to turn around, put that back in the market, and do your flip. Or, like you say here, you could actually build on it. So these would be excellent lots for one of those Mennonite homes, the Premier Homes, or one of those custom homes that Granielle builds. And yes, absolutely, these lots are nice sized, and you can build a duplex on it. Absolutely, no problem at all on that. Question number 7, approximately how much can I sell it for in the future? Okay, so that's an open statement. The future can be any time between 6 months after you take title to 6 years to 20 years, right? So the question I often get is, Dennis, when do you recommend I put this lot back on the market for those of you who are buying investment properties from me? Well, here's what you need to do. First of all, whatever I sell you is going to have some sort of shelf life when it comes to the appreciation that it's going to see. Some properties that you might be buying are just going to go up at the standard appreciation rate. You know, all properties rise in value over time. Yours rises too. All right, so that's just built-in gradual appreciation. Other properties are going to see a short-term bump. What I mean by that is, let's say you buy a property that is 1 block from the road, right? So it doesn't have road access yet, but the road is literally a block, like you can see the road, all right? So if you buy that lot today with no road access, you're going to get it at a lower price, right? It doesn't have road access yet. As soon as that road passes in front of that lot, boom, it's going to see a significant bump, right? Because people are willing to pay more money for a property that has road access. Now, let's say that electric is going to come into the area, all right? So is electric going to come in 12 months? Or 3 years, or 5 years, okay? At that time, the property is going to take another pretty significant bump in price. So depending on how long you're looking to hold the lot, that would depend on which properties I recommend that you buy. So again, the reason I get on these Zoom calls with people is to say, okay, what are your goals now? What are your short-term 3 to 5 year goals? And then what do you hope to do 10 to 20 years from now? And then we pick those properties that work well for you. So for you, The question is, how much can I sell my lot for the future? I think we need to get on their Zoom call and decide when you think you would like to sell. All right, whether it be 3, 5, or 10 years, and I'll be able to give you a little bit more, a better idea of the percentage of increase I think it's going to see. Question number 8. She has 13 questions. Question number 8. Do the 2 lots belong to the same seller? Are you representing them? Yeah, so these 2 lots do not belong to the same seller. Most lots are owned individually. Very rarely will you see 2 lots owned by the same person, right? So when they create these subdivisions, they're given to individuals. Now, sometimes the individuals might be husband and wife, right? Or father and son. So you might be able to find 2 lots together. Or in terms of a true developer offer subdivision, for example, in Grand Belizean Estates, Palmyra Woods, where a developer has a block of lots where they're selling, Grand Belizean Estates was 1,100 lots. Or in Palmyra Woods, 125, 165, somewhere in there, then you will often find 2 lots side by side or in the same area owned by the same seller. But these lots are not. When it comes to representing the seller and buyer in Belize, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, the agent or broker is working with both parties, which actually works out good. So, for example, I go out and I find these properties. So I talk to the seller. The seller says, what is my property worth? And again, I tell them exactly what I think it's worth. So then when I come to my buyers with these deals, right, I'm not playing one against the other, right? I'm saying, look, here's a good deal for you, Mr. Seller. Mr. Buyer, this is a good deal for you. And then that's just the way it works. So I represent both parties, right, which I know is different in the States and Canada, but in Belize, 90% of the time, that's the way it's done. Now, I'll give you an example. You're on the RE/MAX website, right? So you're on the RE/MAX website, and you see that there is a condo at Banana Beach or Grand Creek for sale. And Rob Colon is the broker, the listing agent. Very good friend of mine. Rob's a great guy. And so you call up Rob, say, Rob, I'm interested in this condo at Grand Caribe. So you fly down, Rob tours you around, and whatever condo you want, well, Rob does the paperwork. He represents you in the sale, but he also took the listing from the seller. All right, so again, 90% of the times, that's the way it works. Let's see. Number 9, question number 9. In the future, am I allowed to lease the land? And if so, how does that work? Yes, you can. You absolutely can lease the land in Belize, and it's just a standard lease agreement. What you would want to make sure and protect yourself on is that I tell my clients this, like, look, if you're going to lease, you need to make sure that the person leasing the property can't do anything to damage the property or to leave it undesirable. For example, let's say you had a piece of, let's use beachfront, because beachfront is most oftentimes the easiest to lease, right? So somebody wants to lease this property to put a beach bar on it, right? So they lease it from you at X number of dollars per month. They build this beach bar. They have some good seasons. All of a sudden, something happens and they abandon the property. Well, now you got to come down and you got to like remove what's there and get the property back looking good so you can sell it again, right? So you just got to look at that. Say, okay, how much am I going to lease it for? Is it worth it for me to take this chance? And do I trust the person who's going to be leasing it from me, and do I trust their vision of what they're going to be doing with the property? And if all that makes sense, yeah, then you can go ahead and lease it. That's not a big deal. Number 10, is there title insurance? So you can get title insurance in Belize, but it is not necessary because it's redundant. The government of Belize backs up your rights as a property owner, and they do this equally for locals and expats or foreigners alike, okay? So if you have that title in your hand, I talk about that all valuable title with the 4-digit parcel number, part of the free and clear title, the Registered Lands Act, then the government actually guarantees your ownership, right? So I know in the States and Canada, it's a little bit different. They have title insurance because the closing company and the government doesn't back up your rights, right? So you get the insurance, right? And of course, you go insurance broke in the States, health insurance, title insurance, car insurance, everything. So in Belize, life is a lot simpler. Government guarantees your title, no title insurance needed. Next question, number 12, is there a county assessor's GIS? Not sure what that means. I got to look into that for you, but I believe it is no. There is no assessments on the property. There's no HOA fees. The only thing you have are your property taxes. And that's your question number 13. What are the yearly property taxes for both lots? Both lots are $75 US per year, so it's $150 total on your property taxes. Belize keeps property taxes extremely low. And finally, back up to number 12. who will be the closing attorney. Who does he or she work for? So your closing attorney or your closing company in this case is, I recommend Belize Caye Investments. Alberto Villanueva and his team there have an office right in the Sancas building, right in the middle of San Pedro town. They handle 95% of all of my closings, and they work for you as the buyer. So the buyer is free to choose whatever attorney, whatever closing company they want to work for. I just recommend Alberto because he's on Ambergris Caye. He's done thousands of title transfers on Ambergris Caye, works very well with the Lands Department and with Central Bank. And let me just say something about Alberto. There are some lawyers in Belize City who have taken so long to get a deal closed. Why? Because in Belize, lawyers don't often do property deals. If they do, it's the big deals, the big $4, $10, $20 million transfers. But for anything just of a lot, a condo, or a home, use a good closing company. They do good work. They put a volume enough through. They're getting central bank approval, which is not always easy, by the way. Central bank approval is becoming more and more difficult. They require more paperwork from the buyer and seller. Why? Because they want to make sure that everything is, all their I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and then they give permission for the title transfer. So Alberto will do you a good job. Works for you. You pay him. That's what you pay him your closing costs for, and he'll take care of everything for you. Your title work, your title search, your transfer land forms, all that. You're in good hands with him. All right, so there we go. 13 questions, 22 minutes. Imagine if I had to type all this out. So hope you're doing well. Again, let me know if we're all set with this deal. I'll go ahead. I'll write up the contracts, send them to you by DocuSign. We'll get those signed, and you be on your way to being a property owner on Ambergris Caye. All right, take care. We'll talk to you soon.